Okay, guys, this is Term Two's Active E. We're going to begin a topic that is very similar to the sports education model, but we're going to add a bit of extra stuff to it. So, if you imagine a sports education model is basically just running a sports tournament, the key difference that I'm going to take you through over the next weeks is why would you do that? Basically, why would a sports organisation want to do it? Why would the city council want to pay for one? Why would a company want to host one, sponsor one, be involved with one? And it's that sort of thinking that we're going to involve the students in, as well as running a typical sports education model. So I'll get the old screen share on, hopefully. Okay, so Active E is, or Active Engage is a new wiki. If you're in Term 1, you looked at Active Participate. What we're going to do is look at running a tournament that reflects some of the thinking from Term 1 around making sure that the event we finally run is something that's wanted and will encourage participation. So the same thinking, but we're going to use games and activities that are a bit more sports-minded. Okay, so yeah, this sentence here just says students should recognise the wide range of activities that are available in their community and begin to understand why sport, city council, community groups and businesses all want to know each other, pretty much. So let's just get into it, eh? If you want to get the unit, it's already down here under unit overviews, you'll see that, and this recording is found under the Hangout recordings. So anyway, let's just open up Hangout 1. Okay, Hangout 1's got a bunch of objectives. If we just look at level 3 and 4, most of you guys are operating around there. So level 3 looks at developing movement skills in challenging situations. So we're just going to get better at games, better at activities. But we're also going to describe how these challenges impact on themselves and others. So it's not just play the games, it's analyse them a little bit in terms of was there any value from being involved, who benefited, that sort of thing. Level 3, there's this A3 one where we're going to identify risks and manage those as we put some activities into place. And at level 4, we're going to access and use information. Now, information in this sense usually means things like school rules, school policies. It might be some local information around getting access to different venues and so on, and then you're going to use that information to make safe choices about what you actually put in place. So these objectives, to be fair, are not easily covered in this first week or two. Okay, so yeah, just keep in mind that some of these ones we will touch on a little bit in the first 2 weeks, but we'll keep them running through the next 3-4 weeks. So week 1. In week 1 of Term 2, what I would do is have quite a class-based kind of week where you're really setting the scene, because this topic is not lesson by lesson as such. It's more like a project-based learning approach where you are going to work towards hosting an event or being on a tournament. And so a nice thing to do to begin with is to really explain why, or to create that need in your class. So here's my suggestions: is that you tell the class that you want to organise an event for the purpose of either entertaining the school, engaging the parents, or somehow involving the community. So when you do this, you can either just say, hey, teacher wants you to do, to run an event, or what I like to do is generate some sort of fake reason for the event. So you might have a local shop, a dairy or a fish and chip shop or something down the road. You simply say that you've been talking to the owner and that they'd like to have some advertising, and you were talking to them and you thought maybe your school or your class could help advertise the local dairy or the canteen or something like that. You could go further and create some sort of product, such as a sports drink, where the tournament is designed to advertise that product. So really, we're not just playing a game, we're trying to generate bums on seats. Basically, we want people to turn up to this event, whether that's as a participant or as a spectator, but that's what it's about, is about creating a link between the local shop or the canteen. It might be that the Board of Trustees from the school wants an event run, and then you'd have to look at why does the Board of Trustees want the event run, and it might come down to some of their charter goals. The other way you could do it is to share the City Council's community outcomes. So if you have a look here, I've put a link to the Christchurch City Council's community outcomes. And kids, and in fact lots of adults, don't know much about the community outcomes. Basically the City Council will support anything that's happening in the area if it can fall under one of the 4 community outcomes. So these are Christchurch City Council's community outcomes, where they want Christchurch to be a livable city, have strong communities, to have a healthy environment, and to be a prosperous economy. And there is this one about having a good governance, so forget that one. But basically a sports tournament could be shown to benefit building a strong community, building good links between school, parents, local shops, local environment, local businesses. It could be shown to be supportive of a healthy environment, of building, of encouraging healthy participation, and it could arguably be shown to benefit the economy of the local area. And so one of the challenges for your students might be to host an event and then to report back on the event, the success of the event, under one of these community outcome headings. And I'd suggest that's a really good idea. It's a nice way to show that the event was more than just an event. Okay, so we'll just go back to the actual wiki. So then what you want to do, so you've set this little conversation with them, really, that you want the kids to run an event. It's got to meet a community outcome, it's got to serve a purpose, and then do a bit of a brainstorm type thing. So get them to list all the events that they've been in, all the events they've seen, and so things like the City to Surf. I've made these links if you go on the site, that'll take you to the various websites. City to Surf, the Colour Run, Tough Kid, Weet-Bix, just general sport that they play on the weekends, various sports teams. They might go to a church picnic or a youth group type activity. Once you've got this list, I would ask the kids to sort and categorise that list into groups such as: this event is just a sporting event, this event is purely fun, this event is a social event, this one's just to give it a go, and so on. You might need to write the event titles out a number of times and make them fit. But that could be a really cool little activity in class where you're creating some sort of little poster where they're kind of categorising events, and they're realising that if they want to put on an event, it doesn't actually have to be a sports tournament, which is why I'm not calling this a sports education model as such, because the students might in fact choose to run something quite different. Okay, so those are your real 2 PE lessons. Now that's kind of interesting because we haven't gone outside yet. Okay, so because of that, what I would do for this first week is make sure that you go outside a little bit, but go outside, take part in a few activities, and just get them to discuss, vote, rank what you do. Could it be something that you share with another class, that you invite the parents in to take part in, that you invite the parents in to watch? Is this an activity that could work? And so what I've gone and done is organised a whole bunch of different activities here. What I would do is pick 2 or 3 and just go out and do them every day of the week for this first week. So here we go. Activity 1 is a group marching activity. So it's really kind of basic. What happens is you get your kids to line up in 2 lines, and on your go you ask them to walk in 2 circles following the line around, so that they walk down to the front end of the court, they split from their partner, and then they walk back up, and when they get to the top of the court up here again, they join up with their partner again and they come down together. Okay, that's part 1. So that's just 2 circles moving in opposite directions. Then once they've got that going quite nicely, you make the pairs, so the front pair would move off to the left, and then the second pair would move off to the right, and again when they meet up here they would actually come down as a group of 4, because the front pair here would join up with the second pair here, and down they would come. Now I think, if I'm right in this, it's pretty soon I've got videos that sort of show how this works. Okay, so then they've got 2 little sequences. They've got round 1 and now they've got round 2, and what you want them to do is to be able to finish round 1 and go straight into round 2 seamlessly. Okay, then round 3. So now they're coming down in their 4s. You want them to split back into pairs, so that the two on the left-hand side would go off on the line of the blue, and the two on this other side would go off on the line of the yellow lines. And when they get up here, they're going to come down in pairs again. So the blue pair would go first, the yellow pair would go second, and they kind of merge like a zip here, and they come down to their original starting place again. Okay, then round 4 is where it gets really interesting. I'll see if I can just let the video speak for itself. Hopefully, cross your fingers, maybe it'll work. Okay, so this round is pretty complicated. I'm going to show you the 2 stages. They happen at the same time, but this is how it works. If you're in the line on the right-hand side, you would move in this sequence. So let me just push blue, and we would move around the court up to the back corner, and then across on a diagonal, up, and then back to the original centre line. Come back down there. If you are in the other line, you are going to move around the court to the other back corner, aiming to crisscross, and then back up to the middle, where you will come back down in a pair, and you will stop there. Okay, so as you can see, it gets harder and harder. You've got 4 rounds, starting at a very simple 2 circles, then pairs in 2 circles, then 4s splitting into 2 circles, and ending with what you would imagine as a typical marching crisscross. Now, if you go right back to the top of the objectives, you can look at some of this stuff and look at things like identifying risk, because there's some places in a crisscross that are risky. You could look at describing how the challenge impacts on themselves, because it's quite a challenging activity. A lot of classes take about 6 weeks to actually get it right. So you can just talk about that this is an activity that if we really wanted to perform it or involve parents in or teach to someone, it would be a long-term thing, and that it is challenging, and then describe how those challenges make people act. Some kids really get motivated by it, some kids really ham it up and make it difficult. But just start introducing the fact that you're not just playing an activity for the sake of it, you're playing it, you're doing an activity with the frame of mind that you're going to finally select an activity that you are going to use to help meet a community outcome and promote the local dairy or whatever the Board of Trustees might have asked you to promote, or whatever you decide is the purpose of your little event or tournament. Okay, so we'll go down to activity 2. Activity 2 is called Key Punch, and I'll just click the link and see where we can go with it. Oh, bother, it's broken. Okay, Key Punch didn't work. That's going to be a pain. I'll try and talk about it. I think your link will probably work. I'll just try it one more time. Oh dear, okay. Not sure what's happening there. I'll double check that. But Key Punch works like this. You end up with, say, a group of 15 or 30, or to split your class in half, or whatever you want to do, and they're standing around some numbers that have been placed on the ground. You might write on top of bits of cardboard, or just baseball pads or mats or whatever, and basically all the numbers are there. So you've got numbers 1 to 15, and there's 15 kids, and you just challenge someone to stand on the numbers in order, because you've randomly put them down on the ground. So they go through standing on them 1, 2, 3, and so on, and then you just put it to the group, is there a faster way to do this? And so eventually they'll start seeing that, maybe if 2 or 3 people, or they're not allowed to move where the stones are, the pads are, by the way. But what you want them to eventually end up with is that the kids all actually stand next to a number, and all they've got to do is in sequence stand on them. And that's really your aim, is how fast can you go from, say, 1 to 16 just standing on the pads, and just reflect on that. Is this a little challenge? Imagine if your class was to set a baseline time that this task can be done in 30 seconds or 20 seconds or whatever, and then just put it out to the classes or the parents, and they come in and they have a go at this challenge. Okay, so there's something to keep in mind. So you've got another idea, a challenge, and see how that impacts on people's feelings and their willingness to have a go and their sense of achievement at the end. Okay, helium pole. I won't play the whole video, but you should go in and have a look at this. It's pretty incredible. What happens is that a group of people all stand resting a long pole, a skinny pole, on their fingers, and the challenge is to lower the pole to the ground without anyone losing contact with the pole. And what's really bizarre about this is that people are so self-conscious of moving their hand down too fast that they actually end up pushing up, and often the pole will actually go up, hence the name helium pole, or it will go up at one end and slide off. So again, another little challenge. So you might start this thinking in the kid's head that you could run an event where the parents are put into little groups and they just rotate around a series of small events, and perhaps they could end with marching. So you've got three activities, and you just start sowing the seed that maybe this is an idea, because perhaps they've so far only thought about sporty type things. Okay, hoopla relays is just where students stand inside a chain of hoops. I'm sure inside a chain of hoops and move together. So this is hard to explain. Basically, you might have 5 people all standing behind each other, and they all have a hoop around their waist. And then all that happens is that the person at the back puts their hoop so that it goes over the person in front of them, and then everyone puts their hoop over themselves and the person in front of them. And all they have to do is move around in a space, and when the teacher blows the whistle, the front person needs to take their hoop to the back, reform the chain, and continue. And that's the way it works. And then eventually you can have teams against teams sort of going, like a relay type situation. There are ways that make it a lot easier to change the leader. For instance, if everyone just drops the hoops down to the ground, the front person steps out, takes their hoop, much easier than trying to untangle while everyone holds their hoop in the middle. So again, another little cool activity. Just email me if some of these don't make sense, because they're much easier to see than they are to explain. Balloon booth. Balloon booth is just where a group of people stand in a circle holding hands, and they try to keep a balloon up off the ground, and then when the balloon hits the ground, whatever was missed, so let's say you were trying to kick the balloon, if you missed with your foot and the balloon hit the ground, then no one from then on is allowed to use their right foot. And then you keep going, and so eventually people are only allowed to use their head or one hand or a hip or so on. And there's no real winner. There's no real purpose, but it's quite fun, and the kids enjoy it. And when you come up and reflect on the task, if you come up to have a look at the objectives, you are developing some movement skills, and then you're describing how this particular activity impacts on themselves and others. Okay, so a slightly unusual little game. Helping Hog Snort is quite simple. Again, it's where people in pairs have to look after a little beanbag, but they're not allowed to hold it. They have to squash it between 2 arms or their back, and they just move the beanbag around. So they go around a court all over the place, but the beanbag has to be squashed or rested between both people. So if I'm working with a partner, I'm not allowed to hold the beanbag and my partner follows me. I have to find a way for the beanbag to be touching both of us, and that we can transport the beanbag around. And so you play that game a little bit where they're just moving around, doing whatever, and as the teacher you go around putting a second beanbag on a few people if they're finding it really easy. And then the rule is if the beanbag falls off onto the ground, that pair is stuck until come along and reposition the beanbag back in place for us. The pair that are helping, however, aren't allowed to lose their beanbag while they're at it. Okay, and once you've played that sort of game for a little while, then you can turn it into some sort of relay event where you have some little pairs in a race and that sort of thing, and the kids could be involved in designing a course. Perhaps they're going under and over type things. That sort of thing. Okay, activity 7. Activity 7, I think the video will work. It's a minute long. We'll just let it play for itself. Okay, so this is the helping hand relay. Basically what you've got is 6 wickets lying on the ground on the end of a tennis ball or something, weighing on grass. 3 runners, 1 in each space, with a number of spaces still available, and 3 helpers marked in blue here. And on your go, the 3 runners move 1 space forward at the same time, 3 helpers means that if they work pretty quickly, they can be carrying 2 at a time and that sort of thing. And they're just trying to help the runners get from one end of the court to the other as fast as possible. And obviously, you would repeat it, maybe make them come back the other way, and the helpers become the runners, and the runners become the helpers, or something along those lines. But yeah, quite a nice little challenge. It's a little group activity, and it's really about cooperation and working together. Okay, so what we've shown you is 7 different activities, and they would all fall under the heading of a challenge event. Some sort of event where there's not really a competition, it's more can you do this activity. However, you can put in some level of competition by making them races. But if you were to host an event with the parents or another class using these type of activities, it would be more like a tabloids event where groups rotate around activities, and it's a little bit silly, and it's a real focus on fun and social interaction. So when you're sharing these games and you're reflecting on the value of those games, we'll come up to that objective again, when you are looking at how the challenges impact on themselves and others, when you look at making some choices around which games would be good and which games wouldn't be, you would be looking at, are these games manageable and doable? So you might have a grand idea that you're going to run an event with 100 kids, and if you have, say, 6 of these activities set out on a station, is it manageable? Is it safe? Is it going to work easily in a way that makes some sense? Okay, so without really closely coming to the objectives, it's definitely worth honing in this first week mostly on just, okay, how does this activity affect this group? How does this activity make us think and act and feel? And perhaps that will lead you to some of those decisions where you say, actually, this activity is not a good one for hosting a big community event. Okay, so what we've had is a week where we're looking at sort of challenge activities. If you look under the community outcomes, they would probably fit under things like building strong communities. The big picture might benefit the prosperous economy type thing if you were to run an event and slap on a whole lot of advertising for your local dairy. You know, that sport and activity can help. But definitely the strong communities thing is where I'd be heading with the kids. Okay. And then in week 2, you want to contrast a little bit. So let's have a look. We want to introduce the idea. So you've done these little activities, you've really quietly talked, you know, you've just kind of gone, is it good, is it bad, would it work? But now you want to narrow the focus a bit and really start highlighting the fact that there are 2 types of options. You can run a competitive sport-based type event, or you can run a challenge. That's the choice, and at the end of week 2 you want them, or probably actually a little bit even further, around about week 3 you want them to decide the game and the type of event they want to run. So to do a challenge. So in week 2 we are discussing the challenge approach. Obviously you've touched on it a little bit in week 1, and just here's some more options for challenges. So we've got 2 weeks of the same sort of thing. Okay, so Broken Bridge. Broken Bridge is one of the task cards. If you guys have seen it, basically you set out wickets so that they're like a ladder, and a group take a turn to run and put 1 foot in each gap and wait at the other end. When you are the last person, if you are the last person and you successfully jump through all the spaces on the ladder, you get to shift one of the wickets so that one of the gaps becomes bigger and the line becomes a little bit longer. I think you can understand that, I'd imagine. And basically the aim is to see how long you can make the bridge, or to come out with a champion. And then if you've got a champion, then you can have that champion challenge other people. Okay, I think we might have talked about this one in the participation wikis as well. Okay, I'll just let you read that card. It's pretty user-friendly. Now where are we? Okay, I'll just do 2 forward, 1 back, and then we'll come back to Italian golf. Okay, so 2 forward, 1 back is just a little game, a little ball game. You need a bunch of balls and stand in a circle, and okay, so here we go. 2 forward, 1 back is just where you've got your glass in a circle, and there are 2 balls set at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, as you can see. And on your go, both players pass the ball. 2 players forward, 1 player back. 2 players forward, 1 player back. Okay, and with 2 forward, 1 back, you could just put it to the kids that they, again, come up with a challenge number. Can you get more than 4 balls? Can you get more than 8 balls? You know, and whatever, and just make some sort of leaderboard type thing. Maybe you have a segment in the assembly where you simply say, look, this person's got this class has got the record, and you could establish some kind of Guinness Book of Records type thing where someone in your class has to go and verify that the class achieved it and that sort of thing. And it'd be a really cool idea. And then obviously these activities can be added to some type of challenge afternoon where you invite parents in and put them into groups, mixed groups with their classes, that sort of thing. And they go around working through some of these activities. They work through some of the ones from week 1, and that's one vision of an event that you could have. And then you want to just remind them that there's a bigger purpose, which is to promote the local dairy or the new hat policy or something that the school has decided they want to advertise. And the idea is if they build an event and they get people to come to it, then they have effectively created a billboard that they can brand for the purpose of the client. Okay, so we're wanting to introduce this idea that activities serve 2 purposes. One is health and personal enjoyment, but there's really is a business in here. There's economic outcomes and benefits and reasons, and there's also social outcomes and benefits as well. Okay, Italian golf is a really simple game as well. Italian golf is just where you set up a golf course around your school with players or teams of about 4 throw a quoit to each other instead of hitting a golf ball, and every successful throw is one that is thrown and caught by letting the quoit fall onto the player's forearm. Okay, so you might have 2 landmarks at your school, like a netball post and a back gate, and you as a class decide that it's possible to get the quoit from one landmark to the other in 5 throws. You make a rule that a dropped catch counts as 2, that sort of thing, and you just publish the golf course. You produce a piece of paper with the course and the par and the rules, and you publish it, and then you invite parents and classes to give it a go. And again, you could have a player or some officials who go out and verify how the teams have gone, or you could go on an honesty box type approach. But obviously you're creating this cool little game. When you teach this game, the best way to teach it is to just put them in pairs and let them throw a quoit to each other. Let them do that for quite a while, let them see how far they can throw it and how short they can throw it and different ways they can throw it. Then require them to catch it by letting it go on their forearm, and then put pairs together into a group of 4, which is nice and easy, so then they're getting to know each other a bit more and see how good each member of their team is. And then you just get them to work out, to have a go at throwing it from the back gate to the front gate, and off they go. How many throws did you do? That sort of thing. Then you get them to pick a hole of their own, from the classroom steps over there by the sand to the sandpit or whatever, but also to suggest and nominate their par so that it becomes self-monitored, and they get an idea of how much how possible things are, because you want them ultimately to create a golf course. Okay, so what you've done in the first 2 weeks, and you have to keep coming back to the purpose of the term, which is to run an event, and you want to run an event so that you can promote and advertise a product and meet some community outcomes. You want those are your big ideas, those are your big reasons, and those are the same sort of reasons as to why things like the City to Surf and the Colour Run and the Weet-Bix Triathlon all exist. They're the same thing. So what you've done now, you've had 2 weeks where you've introduced a whole bunch of small, funny little activities, and you can just sort of sum it up as, here's one option. We run an event with lots of activities, and groups come and rotate round. Or we host some afternoons where we as the students lead a group through some activities. So all the parents come in and we all do Italian golf. and we all do Broken Bridge, and then we all do. But the point is, these are challenge activities. They are not a sporting event. The biggest, you're not going to need a point system for how people have gone. You're not going to need a trophy. You're not going to need team colours and team bands. So this is, you've got to sort of summarise and put it to a side. These first 2 weeks you have explored the idea of challenge events, and then the next couple of events, the next couple of weeks, we're going to look at competitive sporting style tournament events, and then after that we're going to pick which we want to run, and that'll give us about 5 weeks to organise it and make it happen. I hope that makes sense. I feel like it's a lot in here, and it's quite a different approach to PE. Give me an email if you want me to explain any one particular game again, or it might actually be easier for me to ring you and talk to you personally if you don't, if it's something specific. So anyway, feel free to use the discussion button or to email me at morgantim111@gmail.com. Thanks very much, and we will talk to you in week 3, if not before. Hopefully, if I can turn this thing off.